Hey everybody, Ramney and Black with you, chatting about UFC 211 going down May 13th in Dallas, Texas. Big fan of Dallas. The TV show.
I was just down there visiting my wife. Yeah.
I heard good people in Dallas.
Great. There's a Deep Ellum. Is this little neighborhood in there? It's really cool.
I imagine lots of good food.
Yeah, great food. Just a cool vibe down there. I got my hair cut in Deep Ellum. I got drunk on tequila.
Nice.
I ate tacos. We hung out. It was great. And yeah, Dallas is an awesome town, man.
I'm sure both Sergio Pettis and Henry Cejudo probably going to have a great meal after their encounter at UFC 211. Duke Roufus told us about this fight when we were in Las Vegas. A very, very cool fight. What are some of the takeaways if you're a Cejudo from Demetrious Johnson? You face the best guy in the world. Now, in order for you to beat all the best guys in the world, you got to focus on how to get back to the top. And like Daniel Cormier, I always say this. He said, when you worry about John Jones, who's the #1 guy in the world, you take care of everything else.
True.
So Cejudo was preparing for Demetrious Johnson. So he was already doing all the things to get all of his strengths to be strong and all of his weaknesses to be his strengths. So what are the takeaways from that fight to make sure that he's really dominant and gets back into that conversation?
You know, fighting is so incredibly complex now. And you don't have to believe it if you're a young fighter, but then you fight Demetrious Johnson and then it becomes that truth is forced on you. And Cejudo was a swaggerer of a wrestler with the gold medal
Still
to
is.
prove it. Yeah. And then he started putting together simple 3-piece combinations that hit hard because he's a good athlete and he's powerful. And bam, landed on people, their hands would come up, he would try to take them down. He fought a guy that was one of Duke's guys. Chico had some good times against him. And
that was a great fight.
It was. And it was a very close fight. And Chico didn't just get out wrestled either. And I don't know if Duke was cornering him. They had different times where Chico did and didn't train at that gym in Milwaukee. But Duke would have learned a lot from watching that. They targeted this. They told us, we're going after this fight. We're pursuing this fight with Sean Shelby. But Cejudo learned that, oh man, the Josh Koscheck approach. I can out-wrestle everybody, and now I got some heavy hands, knockout power in both hands, written on ancient scrolls on the walls of Egypt, knockout power. That's not going to cut it because there's all these in-between moments, and Demetrious Johnson will hurt you in all of them. And Sergio is full. Sergio is complete. He'll understand that, and they'll look to exploit the very same things that Demetrious did, because how long is that? That's less than 2 years. That's probably less than a year and a half. Cejudo will have improved, but we've been able to look and see. And we were just talking before the break. Your guy Mike Perry on Ellenberger.
Mike Perry, wow.
Would you be surprised if you're Duke and Sergio and Anthony to find those spaces in those zones as the guys coming in to close distance?
I'll tell you, Mark, I don't know if it's possible if you can bring up Sergio's record. I think it's 14-2. Yeah. I feel like it's that. Yeah. And that's a lot of fights, right?
Yeah.
You and I called his first fight. That's a lot of fights for such a kid, a young age, now in the UFC, really hitting his zone and stride around with really intelligent people, former champions.
Just seasoning up. Fight number 1.
He's 15-2.
15-2.
At 23
yeah. 23 fight number 1 was on around his 18th birthday. Yeah. Who did he fight? Kyle Vivian. Yeah, kicked him in the head. Yeah. Kyle didn't like it. Kyle's a good dude. Didn't like the stoppage, but I don't want to see him get kicked in the head anymore. Like that kid just
Yeah.
Kyle ended up, I think, with maybe an 0-6 record. He's the most dangerous 0-6 guy going.
He's faced some of the best guys.
And once you start to lose a couple of fights, the fights they offer you are things like Pettis.
Yeah.
Eamon
Zahabi.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they were.
Exactly. That's what you get. Yeah, that's what you end up getting. But there's some great young, fighters that filled that responsibility of giving challenges to young, guys on their way up. And Kyle was one of those guys. And it was an honor to call Sergio's first fight. Anthony was there, and Duke was sitting beside us. And now to see what he's done since then.
23. Just think about it. He's got all of this experience. And now he's going up against this guy. They wanted this guy. They believe in their heart of hearts that they have the formula. They beat the guy that fought for the championship. Guess what? We're going to be fighting for the championship.
So who should we go after? I don't know. I'm thinking we go after this stud of an Olympic gold medalist wrestler who hits hard, and he's got a hell of a head of hair.
Yeah.
Let's go after him. Let's go after
big smile.
Let's go after that guy.
One thing about we've seen jiu-jitsu guys or taekwondo guys or wrestlers, once they start training hands, once they start when they understand the idea and the sport and the art of boxing, that seems to be the thing that a lot, in my experience, people gravitate to. They end up, especially if they have some sort of background in martial arts, they fall in love with the beauty and the art of the science of boxing.
It is an incredible science and art,
So how important is it that Cejudo realizes, oh right, even though I'm in love with this, I gotta stay, I gotta be conservative, if that's the right word.
So it's a really tricky thing, and I say this a lot these days, that everything is a moving target, right? So you think you know what you have to train to win, but by the time you get there, that target has moved. The target of victory, the target of success or greatness, it moves. And so you go on a path. You have to go on a path to where it's gonna be, to where winning will be, not where it is now. And so what is that path? And we don't know necessarily the answer, but Damian Maia predicted that path would be to go back to his strengths, play to his strengths. There was a time where Damian Maia fought Anderson Silva out in the fields, in the open space. You know, I mean, that didn't make any sense. And of course he lost.
But I think it kind of made sense in the sense that Damian Maia now knew that he could be in this. You know what I mean? I had to test myself. Can I be there?
So I think we're together. We're finding our answer. This is Damian Maia now, winning consistently and looking brilliant, which is back to his primary weapons of jiu-jitsu.
And I like
to
you say
get to there, he had to go through learning to battle in an Anderson Silva on the feet, unable to get to him. By doing that and making peace with that, it allowed him to go back to this and back to his primary strategies and goals. And I think Cejudo is passing through that time too, whereby being able to strike, it'll get him back to trying to be on top. Sarah McMahon, same thing. Sarah McMahon, I think ultimately she added a higher level of jiu-jitsu to her wrestling. I think if you're Cejudo, you're never going to truly be able to strike with Sergio Pettis. Could you land the big one and go, oh, see, Robin, you were wrong. You knocked out Sergio Pettis? Sure, you could. But you're going to do 20 rounds on the feet with Sergio Pettis, you're going to lose 20 of those rounds. You are. And that will never change. He's been doing this since he was 14, the way you've been wrestling. So the goal would be to move it back to being on top of Sergio Pettis. And the threat there is Sergio and Anthony have a killer guard and always have, and they'll look to submit you. And so you have to be capable of shutting that down. If you're going to win this fight with Sergio, you're going to strike long enough to make peace with this game and not be panicked by it, to get in and get a hold of him and put him on his back
up against the fence,
or out in the space and gold medal him right in the face as much as you can. Going to be very hard to do. Everybody in Sergio's room knows that's what you need to do. And I don't know if they have Ben Askren kicking around coming over from Singapore or wherever he is, but they got lots of people there who understand what he needs to do, which is why they targeted you.
This is a very important fight at 125 pounds. Will Sergio Pettis rise to the occasion and take out the Olympic gold medalist and Henry Cejudo?